Okay, so this main project we're going to work on is going to be, I don't know if anybody's heard of the card game called Concentration. I always called it Memory, but basically how it works is there's a grid of cards, and each card has a unique face on it. Well, actually, there's pairs, and you want to try to match each card with its pair, but they're all turned face down. And so on every turn, you would name 2 cards to reveal, and you'd pick those up, and if it's a pair, you get a point. If not, you have to put them back in their same spot. And so you kind of have to remember which cards are in which positions. So we're going to make it Twitch interactive, which means that Twitch viewers will be able to play by guessing through chat, and each of the cards will also have a Twitch user logo on it. I think it should be pretty fun. And right now I was working on making a chat command handler so I could test, exclamation point, guess, oops, if I can spell correctly, something like A1, A2, which means I would guess the bottom left and then this tile here to see if it's a pair. And obviously the final game will just do everything through Twitch chat, but I wanted to have this like test chat box so that I wouldn't have to open or like be live to actually test this. So this class, oh right, so I was trying to be able to convert what's called algebraic notation, which is, I guess, chess or battleship notation, where the columns are alphabet letters and the rows are numbers. Let's see, chess algebraic notation. Something like this. And this is a really simple version. It's missing multiple, I guess, features, because right now it only supports a single alphabet letter. So, for example, if for some reason we had more than 26 columns, then you'd start repeating letters, but I don't support that. And then also it doesn't do any validation to make sure that the format is correct or that there's a number in the numeric part of the string. So probably we'll want to fix that, but I don't really know if I want to worry about it now because I kind of want to get on to making the actual game prototype. So I think I'll just write something, a to-do list here. So let me see. Style, position, decoder, validate, strings. So yeah, support more than one alphabet, and then we need to validate the overall format and validate, I guess this would be like incorrect alphabet part, and then validate unparsable numbers. And then also, I think for now we only support letters up to D. So yeah, we have a lot to do there, but I don't really want to deal with it for now. Deal with it right now. Okay, so what else do we need to do? So we need to hook up the command handler with command strings. And right here, so this class is just sent this information on any command, and then it doesn't actually know how these commands are implemented. It just calls some other handler. And so there needs to be some like in-between class that registers the handlers to the specific command strings. And the reason I want to do it that way is because I want the streamer to be able to decide what commands would trigger each effect. So I need to do that, and then also this is a guess command handler is what actually deals with a guess command from chat. So I guess let's start here. So first of all, I guess this is the format. So, or I guess yeah, we don't know for sure if it's guess. So it's just some command string, and then these are the two arguments. So again, we need to make sure that there's two arguments. So if it's less than 2, then we'll want to throw some error. Yeah, and I was trying to figure out how to do error handling. I guess the best way is just to do traditional exceptions, because these commands aren't going to be running all the time. So as error error handling is very expensive processing wise, but I think it'll be the best way to do this. So I guess I'll just make an exception class. So I'd have one for like an unknown command, so and then one for I guess an invalid arguments, but what would I call that? This is fine. I think. In fact, let's go ahead and shorten this because it's a bit of a long class. And then we'll want to pass a string to it, I guess, but I always, whenever I deal with strings that will be passed upward to the user, I always worry about localization, but I usually don't have like a localization system in place yet, so I'm not sure how to deal with it. I'm trying to think about. We could either. Well, I don't really want to. In one of my other games I did on stream, I just would send an enumeration in the exception, but I don't really want to do that because I've kind of gotten tired of using enumerations because they lend themselves to bugs because you have to keep on adding different values to the list, and then you have to go and turn it into some huge switch exception down the line to actually do anything with it. So I think I'd like to just include the actual string in here, but Well, let's just be bad and just pass the string, I guess. Oh, I have to create a constructor. The only thing is that if I leave that up to the chat command itself, then it wouldn't know like what the string for the command is. So I kind of like to be able to just return an error message here, but what I was going to say is I would just return or pass something like this, like guess command requires 2 arguments, but I always forget, does it have an E there? I don't know. But if this command has been renamed, then the user won't really know what, like this would be invalid. And I don't really want to pass the command string into the chat command handler because I don't really want it to be able to do any logic based on what the string is. So let's do something like this maybe, and then out string error message. So then this won't actually throw the arguments, it will just say like error message equals and then return false. I misspelled the 2 there as well. Okay, and then we can keep on doing stuff. So now we gotta validate the 2, because these 2 strings should be an algebraic notation chess position. What did I? It's tile position decoder. Int to algebraic, and so now I need to know the board width. In order to know that, I'd have to get the board entity. Okay, that's an interesting problem. We'll deal with that later. Oh, I'm doing this backwards. It should be algebraic to int. So now we'll do something like if arg1 valid is false, then we'll want to throw another exception. I don't really know if I like this thinking about it again because it's kind of, I don't know if there's a better way, but it feels like I should just be able to return a string, and then if it's null, then that means there's no error, but then that feels kind of bad too. I could always just throw an exception here, and then there'd be like a nested exception, but that seems kind of wasteful. Maybe, let's see. I think I'll go back to just throwing an exception, and then maybe whatever hops out or whatever handles this exception would just kind of know what the command is. Which I guess is true because I had to pass it through here. I think that's better because, yeah, I don't know, just trying to get around using an exception was starting to look a bit messy to me. So we'll just, yeah, say require 2 arguments. And then the actual chat command will be passed to the user by whatever function called the chat parser. Okay, and then this would be something like invalid position, and then we'd pass args 0. Probably even use quotation marks in case they send white space there. Okay, so that's basically all we need to do, but now we have to put this command into the game somehow. And I think I'm just going to do it as an entity. That'll be just like an event. So I guess this needs to get a handle to the world somehow. I could just do something like world active. Yeah, active entity manager, create entity, and then just create the entity here. But that seems kind of bad because then it would just add the entity immediately, and I'm not sure exactly when this code will be ran. So it'd probably be better if it has a like a entity command buffer, and maybe that would also pass needed information like the board width. Okay, so I need to kind of figure out how this is going to be called. Let's see, chat command, I don't want to call it handler, I guess. Parser system. And so this will be actually hooked up to the entity, I guess the entity layer in Unity. Okay, I guess, well, it's not really going to use jobs, so it can just be a component system. Alright. And like I said, well, now I'm realizing that I didn't really want to. Well, I guess I can't. I was going to say I didn't really want to have us. Each chat command be an entity, because this could just have like a list of or query the entity system for a list of chat commands. So I don't really want to do that, because that would just create a bunch of entities all the time. And also entities can't hold strings, so that will be a bit difficult to deal with. I feel like I need to have another class. So the parser is fine. Like a chat command queue that will hold just like chat commands that we've received. This will just be another normal class. Okay, and we'll have I guess it doesn't need to be public. What am I doing? This is a class, and it will have string user, string command, string arguments, and this will generate some garbage, but it should be okay. I don't really know if there's a way we can get around it, because strings are objects by nature, so. Okay, and we'll just have a list, and then whenever we receive a command, we'll just place it in that queue. Okay, so now what I'm thinking is that system can just look at the queue and then call the parser. And then it can also set up any hooks that the chat handlers would need to use relating to the entities. Okay, so now I need something that will actually hold these classes. I guess I could just put them in the game object database, which is probably fine. Or I could make them singleton classes, which means that just one instance will exist. Let's see, but regardless, something needs to set them up. And we're gonna need to have some class to set up like the Twitch bot and everything. But I guess I won't worry about the Twitch bot yet. I'm trying to think. So is there any reason why we wouldn't want these classes to be around right when the game launches? I don't think so. Let me just have a chat helpers. Alright, let's do this, I guess. Chat logic setup. Okay, setups. I like to call these like something that describes like what they actually do. So we'll do the call it initializer instead of just setup. And this will be another component system. But actually, this is going to be another one like the database initializer that doesn't run at the, never runs update. So really, we just need it to set up these objects. So chat. So I guess the queue equals new chat command queue, and then the parser. I can spell chat command parser, and then the game logic database is a class I created that just kind of lets me store objects in an easy way that can't be stored in an entity. And I'm kind of tempted to combine, like to make some class that holds both of these, but I think I'll keep it separate because some classes only need to know about the queue and some only need the parser, so that. And then just set enabled to false, and it should never run update. Okay, so I think that's good. Okay, and now this parser system, let's override on create. And it will actually want a reference to the chat command queue. Oh, it should just be a list. And the parser. And this class will basically just look to see if there's anything queued. And if it is, it will set up all the data the parser needs, and then I guess parse the chat messages. Chat command queue and chat command parser. Okay, so this will need to run every frame because unfortunately the queue here is not an entity, so we can't really just use the entity list to control when onUpdate is called. So if queues, yes, this is actually a list, so I need to get the first entry in the queues, and then actually I need to have like an is empty. And could do for each or something, I don't know. Boolean has entries, and then we'd return queued commands count is greater than 0, and then we'll want to iterate this. So is it, I think we return an I enumerable. But I guess I need to make this chat command public then. And if I do that, is it really worth it to make it IEnumerable? I don't know. Guess it's fine. For each. Okay, I think this is fine. So we're gonna kind of make our own for each implementation here, which is fine. It might be a little slow, but I'll take a little bit of ease of use here because this will run pretty often, but not like every frame, and there's not going to be like thousands of messages. Well, there might be quite a bit of messages, but I guess if this ever slows down the game, then we know where to look. What am I doing? Oh, queued commands. And I kind of like doing this because then when it's done, we can just clear the queue automatically. So if queue has entries, oh, why did it do that? Oh, I'm in the wrong class. Command in queue process. And then we just call parser. Oh yeah, I gotta get the reference to the actual parser, not the list. So handle command. And then we have the command string and the arguments and then the user. Okay, so this is good, but well, I guess now we've kind of got the flow of how it's going to work, but this chat command or the guest command handler still needs to be able to access an entity command buffer to spawn an event. And it also needs things like the board width, which it can only get from the entity system. So I feel like this is going to be kind of like the liaison between the entity system and the chat handlers. So it needs to be able to grab any information that might be needed. So first I'm going to go ahead and make an entity query for the board. Get entity query, and this will just have, we'll just want to, well, let's not use type of, let's use component type. Oh, okay, I know why it's not showing up there. Well, I did this wrong. A couple ways. It should be read only, and then also I don't have the right namespace in our using list up there. So I'm not going to add this into the required for updates, because if there's no board, we might still want to be able to handle commands. So the easy way to do this is just here. We'll probably want to be able to pass a class with the needed values up to this parser. Let's see. It would be something like public struct chat handler what do I want to call this? I guess state. Oh, it's not the best name, but I don't want to spend too long just thinking about that. So we'll have something like the board width, and then we'll have entity command buffer. And I'll call this will happen on the begin initialize buffer. So if I ever want to be able to create entities at different phases of the game, I could just add other entities here, but this one will happen at the beginning of the initialization phase. I don't know what to call this. It's kind of like the game state. And then I also want to pass this to all the handlers. Okay, and so now that we have a reference to that, we can call, well, first of all, we can pass the board width here. And then state dot begin initialization buffer, create entity, and the art type. So I guess if I wanted to create an archetype, I guess it should go up here in like an initialization. I guess on the constructor will require an entity manager so I can create the archetype. Oh. Okay, and then event archetype equals entity manager. Get archetype or create archetype? I didn't think it showed up. And then I could just pass an iMessage, or not iMessage, just message. And then I guess we'll want another something else that would tag what type of event this is. So I guess it'd just be a guess event. And actually, the way that these are going to work is we basically are just going to keep a list of all guesses until a certain point, and then we'll process them all. So, yeah, I actually don't want this to be a message. Yeah, because I don't want it to be deleted on the next frame. Let's see. This will be a tile guess. And it will have tile 1, and then tile 2, and then also the user that guessed, which I haven't dealt with how users are going to be handled, but I guess we're going to have like a list of users. Let's go ahead and create this struct. And then somehow we'll tie this to like a username. Okay, but that is also another interesting problem because now here the user is a string, and if I want to convert it to an integer, we need to know that list and be able to convert it. So some other class should do that. But probably we want to wait because sometimes we might not need to store this user information, and so we don't need to go ahead and convert it ahead of time. And if we look through a list of all active users, then it might be a little slow. Anyway, so this is tile guess. And then we can call state begin int buffer set component. Okay, and so tile 1 and tile 2 we have already. And then the user ID we don't have. Also, like, what if a user... How did I do it in the design? Like, if a user guesses twice, do we keep only their most recent guess? Did I even figure that out? And then we randomly just choose a guess to go with. Yeah, because well, I guess we'll just store this information, and then when the timer's up, actually, I don't really want this handler to go searching through all guesses to see if there's a duplicate. So maybe we need to have another component and then call it like new tile guess, but I'll look into that. So let's see, tile guess commands, enforce 1 guess per user. So we'll have to see how we do that. Okay, and so now I need some system. So we did that already. And now I need some system to convert user strings to IDs. And then whenever I do that, I need to make sure to update the guess command handler. This is like every turn I make trying to do this chat command, I keep finding deeper rabbit holes. Okay, but yeah, I really want to just test getting this guess into the database, so I'm going to try and take some shortcuts to get there, and we'll come back and fix things up. Okay, so this is an error because I need to pass that state object. Void create state. I guess this shouldn't be void because I need to return the chat state. Okay, so the board width is not super difficult. First we'll need to read this board query. Okay, so var boards equals board query dot to component data. Oh yeah, component data array. The other one is just a standard array, and this is a native array, which is what we want to use. So temp job, and then we don't want to use a job handle. And then later on we'll dispose of this. I'm going to go ahead and type that now so I remember. So state dot board width is boards 0 dimensions x. Okay, and now to get the entity command buffer, I need to get the buffer system. This will be the initialization buffer system, in case I ever need to be able to have multiple. World get existing system, begin initialization entity command buffer system, and then here we can just call state dot begin initialization buffer dot create command buffer. Now one thing I'm not sure about is like, what if there's commands in that we receive that don't need this, then we kind of create this buffer for no reason. So if that is an issue, we can kind of make the values in the state be callbacks, and then we only create this if we need it, but I don't really know if that's going to be an issue. Like, I wonder how much overhead there is in just creating a buffer and if it stays empty. As far as I know, it doesn't generate garbage. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. But I feel like down the line we might need to come and optimize a lot of this chat command code, which is okay. It's never really a good idea to try to optimize too much before you actually know what the issues are. So we'll get that, and then we can just pass this here. Okay, so are we ready to actually test it? That box manager field is never assigned to. Well, that's not true. I hate these warnings because used to, if you put serialized field here, Unity was smart enough to know that you would be assigning this in the editor. But now these warnings are kind of useless. There's probably some way I can disable them, like, I don't know, I forget what the keyword is. Pragma warning off or something. But it seems annoying to have to do this. So if I do that, is that warning gone? Okay. I think I'll go ahead and do this because the warnings are useful. How come? Oh, this is like, it's a test class anyway. If I just type null, we'll stop complaining. Okay, well maybe that's a better way to do it. So board dimensions never assigned to. Let's pass 0 and number of images. Okay, so now those warnings should be gone and we can actually use the warnings if there's any that are pertinent, but doesn't look like it. So I'm gonna play. Oh, still nothing will happen because I haven't hooked up the chat commands to their strings. or the chat command handlers to the command strings. Oh, let me see. Like I said, I want them to be editable by the user, but again, that would be a huge rabbit hole to go down to try and figure out user preferences already. So maybe just make a note. Make editable by the streamer. That's going to be a big deal because I'll have to somehow save the preferences, load them up, have them in a database, and then update while the game is running. But for now, I think I'm just going to put it in the ChatLogic initializer. Let's see. Remove test code and ChatLogic initializer. Okay, so parser. I guess the parser we're going to need to have functions to add and remove values. I think for now I won't worry about how we clear the handler registry. I think I might just make a clear method, but let's say register handler, and then the chat command handler. I probably want to make sure that this doesn't already exist or already contain the same thing. But I'll worry about that when it's actually editable. Probably will handle that where the player sets their values. Okay, so parser dot register handler. So we'll just do guess and then new, let's see, command handlers. Doesn't work, does it? Okay, that's fine. And then we need to pass the entity manager, so I can just pass entities. That's not it. There we go. Okay, so I think this still isn't going to be enough because we don't have any code that actually passes the commands that we type into the text box to the parser yet, or rather adds them to the queue. So let's chat box manager. So here we need to get a handle on the chat command queue. Which I can get pretty easily. Yeah, this should be queues actually, and then okay, so we need to kind of parse this text before we can send it to the queue. And also, I'm gonna just have a serialized field for whatever the user string will be. Okay, so let's see. So I guess commands are passed command and then arg1, arg2. So what I need to do first is get this first value out of it. and then remove the exclamation point, and then split the rest of them into an array. I'm going to do this kind of messily. So split equals text dot split, and then we'll split it on spaces. And the command is, oops, split 0 substring starting the first, just to get rid of this exclamation point. And then string arguments equals split length -1. Oh, that's not how I do that. So int I equals 0, I less than split length. So obviously I'm kind of just like glossing over the mini issues with validation here, because what happens if basically anything about this string is formed wrong? We'd get an error here, but I don't really care that much because this is just for debugging. It's not going to be forward facing. Later on I probably will want to, because obviously we don't want the hypothetical streamer of this game to be able to type in something in the game and then cause it to crash. So let's see, UI text field, validate input text. I'm just going to leave it at that because we're doing no validation here at all. And then the command queues 0 queue command okay. So what I'm hoping will happen is I'll type something in, or I'll type the guess command. Wait, did I? Here on the chat logic. Okay, it is guess. I'll type the guess command into here, and then it should create an entity with a tile guess information. So let's see. A1, A2. Okay, well I pressed enter and I'm guessing there was an exception. Yeah, so index was outside the bounds. Oh, right, I looped too much here. Maybe it'd be easier if I did something like that. So we iterated one too many times because the argument array is one length of one less than the split array. So, but I was going all the way until I was equal to split length, which is too long. So that's what that error was about. Okay, so no exceptions that time. Let's see, did our... Okay, so it looks like the entity wasn't created, and I can tell because over here it shows us every group of entities, and there's not one for the tile guess. Okay, let's sustain up there. So I guess I need to figure out what happened. So we added the queue. My guess would be that the chat command parser system didn't run. Either because has queries, has a bug, or something. Or I made a bug with a process. Let's see. Let's go into here. Oh, also, this should throw an error now. So throw new unknown chat command exception. We don't really even have to pass any strings. Okay, bug, log, handling. Okay, yeah, obviously it doesn't show what's in the arguments, but okay, so that's weird. Oh, it's an unknown chat command. So it's handling guess by debug. But I put guess in here. Let's see. Did the initializer not run? Oh, I didn't put it in a system group, so maybe that's why. So update in group. I keep on forgetting to do that. Initialization system group, and then this chat command parser. Parser system. It still ran even though it wasn't in a group. But let's put it in the simulation group. Okay, so let's try it again. It's a lot faster if you stop playing the game before you change code. Got to do that. Probably get rid of this debug because it's spamming the... Oh, now that I did that, it's gonna have to recompile again. But yeah, it's spamming the log, so we don't need it right now because we already made sure that the pairing algorithm is working. Okay, so guess A1, A2. So it's still an unknown chat command, but if I look in here, I don't see either of my systems. But maybe that's just because... how come? Like the simple board initializer is in here, but not the chat command initializer, and also I don't see the chat parser system in simulation system group, but I guess they are running. Maybe because they errored out. I guess I should catch both systems here, so try catch. So chat, I guess unknown chat command. Bug, log, unknown chat command. So I guess at this point is when we would also send something back to the user. And then what's this one? Chat command exception. Wait, I don't need the variable there. Error in handling chat command. And then it'd be the exception message. But I guess I still need to figure out why the command is not working. Oh, it's because, yeah, I'm converting this to upper invariant, but I think that This initializer has it all lowercase. So yeah, that's the issue. Okay, let's try this one more time. Okay, well there I saw this entity created, so yeah, tile 1, tile 2. Okay, well that's not right because they're both 0, but at least we didn't get any errors. Then we got another one. There it set it to 8, 8. It's interesting that they're the same. Oh, it's because I passed the same argument. Now, according to this, A1... Okay, so I was doing A1 and A2, so since we have a board width of 4, it should be 0 and 4, which I think was right, what we got before. Yeah, so 0 and 4, and now let's try A1 and B2 should be... Well, let's do B1 and B... or B1 and C1, that should be 1 and 2. Okay, and then... Now I know this is going to cause an exception if I type in E1 because we don't support that yet. And it said error in handling chat command. Oh. Okay, so it still didn't give me an error that time, but what did it... So it just said that was 0, 0? Okay. Well, that's interesting. Why does it say that... Oh, actually... I think I remember why now. So yeah, if it doesn't find an alphabet letter in the array, it just sets it column 0. So again, it gives the right values except if it doesn't check to see if you're in bounds or what. But I guess this wouldn't. So that's something I do need to do. So check command, parser system. Should also... Let's see. Does it need to know? Because like I was going to say, it should check to see if the guess is in bounds. But I don't really want these chat handlers to do too much work. And it's already going to have to like make sure this guess is by a valid user and things. I think that will happen later on. So yeah, when there's going to be some class that will need to validate this information and also delete old guess so that there's only ever one guess per user. So I think in light of that, I'll just go ahead and name this, or rename that. I can make this simpler. So yeah, we'll have some other class that will take this event and then compare it to every other guess and then either add it or erase the other one. I guess we could do that now. It'll be hard to test because right now we only ever have support for one user. So probably, let's see. Yeah, we need to do like user handling. So I don't even have any concept of user tiers yet. And then also user IDs tied to usernames. So this we need to validate guesses to make sure they are in bounds. Okay, so I wanted to try and make the game playable, but as you can see, as I'm doing this, I keep running into pretty deep rabbit holes I could go into. So if I wanted to make the game playable, I could just have every command come from user 0, like it does right now, and just try to make it work with that, and then we can add more users whenever we get those systems online and see how it works. I don't think it makes much difference which way I go in terms of like ease of development, but I'd kind of like to have gameplay loop up and running a little bit. So let's go ahead and make some system that will look at those unverified tile guesses and just add them to a list of verified tile guesses. And I could even do this differently now that I think about it. So instead of having this be a different component, I can just add another component to this. So we have initialized. Could just use the initialized, but I don't think it really matters if I have more structures with different names. And this will make it easier for me to keep track of what it does. So yeah, this will just be a tile guess and without the verified tag. So this guess will try to add the verified tag to them. Memory for systems. Oops. Okay, and we are going to use jobs here because this is something we can multi-thread. Well, we can multi-thread one part of it, but then the other part, so we can multi-thread the part that makes sure that every guess is valid, but we can't multi-thread the part that checks all previous guesses and deletes out-of-date ones because well, yeah, because like if one user, this is going to be kind of unlikely to happen, but if one user, for instance, submitted 2 guesses on the same frame, then we'd want to, I guess we just delete the second one in the list because it'd be kind of difficult to see which one came first. I guess we need a timestamp. I wonder, did the Twitch lib give a timestamp for chat messages? I guess I could use my own timestamp because probably the chat messages are sent in order that they're received. Okay. Yeah, because if, like, say that we got really high latency and the user just happened to send 2 commands and we got them both at the same frame, then we definitely want to throw out the first one we received. Otherwise that'd be kind of annoying for the user, I think. Okay, so how do I want to do that? I'll just have a int timestamp, I guess. And then maybe the chat command parser will just keep track of that. I wanted. And then after it handles it, well, no, we'd want to increment it first because if there's an error, then we wouldn't get or after it. So technically nothing will have parse count 0, like that matters. I guess this can just be a unsigned integer. Not that it makes much difference, but okay. So now we have a way to differentiate between two guesses, and the one that's received second would have a larger parse count, so. Okay, so I like to start by writing the jobs. Let's leave that error there so it won't have that exception in my face. So this first job, I think, will just make sure that every tile guess is what am I trying to say, is valid or inside the board, basically. So in board worker, we can do an I job for each, I think. Oop, not what I wanted. Okay, so all this class really needs, this will be read only, and it will need private int2 board dimensions. Again, this is going to be kind of constricting this to be a square board. What's it not like? Oh, I used the wrong namespace here. I want the Unity version. But if I ever change it to have non-square boards, then I'll come back and fix this. So we have, basically I want to have another function here, private struct or bool is valid. So the row is position dot divided by the width. Actually, yeah, now that I think about it, the whole like algebraic notation wouldn't work if the board's not a rectangle, so unless well, probably what I would do if I really wanted to have different shapes is I would just have the actual like name of that tile's position visible on the screen, which we might do anyway, but okay, so that would be return row greater than equals 0 and row less than board dimensions dot y and column greater than equals 0 and column less than board dimensions dot x. Yeah, I keep on thinking about having different shaped boards, so I might add this here. And then we need to display board position names by their tiles. I'm just going to write that in case I decide to go for it later. Okay, so if either of these is invalid, then we basically want to just delete this entity. So how would I do it in this guess verifier? Because they're going to have other jobs that run after this that check for duplicates. And if this is invalid, then we don't want we don't want to we don't want to actually overwrite a valid guess with this one if this one's invalid. So I think I need to change how I do this. So this is going to be at iJob parallel for filter, which is a little different than what we've done before. The gist of it is that it is meant to iterate over a list in parallel, and if you return true, then it will add that index to a list, and you can use that list later to figure out like all valid guesses, or all valid entries into a list. So it's a way to filter a large list of items in parallel. So that's actually going to be perfect for this application. That shouldn't be private up above, but so we'll use a native array of tile guess. Okay, and then we'll return is valid guesses index tile 1 and is valid guesses index tile 2, and also I don't want the guesses to be identical because that doesn't make any sense. A couple other things, like you can't guess an already revealed tile, but I don't know how we're going to keep track of that yet, so let's deal with that later. So okay, I guess we're doing that, keep track of that here. Guesses to make sure they're in bounds, that's what we're working on. And then we validate guesses point to tiles, and then guesses do not involve already revealed tiles. So if a pair of tiles have already been revealed to be a pair, then somebody already got a point on that, so you wouldn't want to guess on that again. So yeah, I'm not sure how we're going to store that information yet, so I'll just leave that out for now. Basically, this worker is done. It's a bit of a misnomer now, actually, because it runs on this too. What do I want to call it? I guess let's just call it valid filter worker. Okay, so this structure is going to be the more fun one that checks a list of unverified guesses against the verified guesses. I guess first let's do unverified duplicate filter worker. So this will look at the unverified list and see if there's any duplicates, and if it is, it will throw out the one that's before it. I think I can still make this a parallel filter. So it'll just use this again. So what this will do is actually, given its index, it's going to look through all other guesses and see if they're by the same user. And if there's one by the same user, we'll return false only if our timestamp is less than the other one. So the one with the greatest timestamp should remain. 0i less than guesses length. Let's see. If guesses. Oh, also, yeah, we want to make sure that I does not equal index. These namings are going to be weird. So let's call this check index. And then also, so if I does not equal index and guesses I.user equals guesses check index dot user, then we'll want to return. Well, I guess if this is less, then we can return now. Otherwise, we'll want to keep on looking through. So yeah, if the users are equal and guesses I.user ID is greater than guesses check index. So we have the smaller user ID, or not user ID, it should be timestamp. So we'd have this smaller timestamp, which means that our command was received first, so this other guess should overwrite the previous guess. So we would return false. And then if it makes it all the way through this loop without encountering a guess up by the same user with a greater timestamp, then that would be the most recent guess, so we'd return true to keep it. Okay, so now we have to look through the already verified the already verified guesses. Okay. Oh, I always forget, so I'm going to go ahead and tag these to be burst compiled, which just means that Unity will compile them using a very fast compiler. It has a few, like you can't debug it very well, and also supposedly it's eventually going to work with entity command buffers, but it doesn't for now, so we'll have to keep that in mind. Which might actually be an issue here, but it's not difficult to solve. So we'll have two arrays here. We'll have the unverified. I can spell it right. Verified, and then I'll have another array for the verified guesses. And then we'll have another array of integer, and this is the index of the unverified guesses that have made it through the filters. Let's see. Valid, unverified. Oh yeah, so this won't be an iJob parallel for filter. I think this will just be an iJob because we can't really parallelize this. Or could we? Yeah, I guess we could run it once for every unverified value in this array. Okay, so iJob. What we do here is we make it an iJob parallel for defer, which means that the number of times or number of threads that this would run is based on the length of this native. Should be a list that will pass to it in the on update up here. Okay, so unverified index equals valid unverified. Okay, so now we need to look through every verified guess and see if it has the same user. And if it does, then we'll just want to replace that. So I need to build a queue here of entities we want to delete. We'll also need to delete all unverified entities that didn't pass through the filter. But I'll deal with that in a second. So this will be a native queue of entity, and I'll tag it as concurrent, which means that we can use it in a parallel job. This will be a destroy queue. Oh yeah, this they changed it. I think it's supposed to be as a parallel writer. Okay, so for int I equals 0, I less than verified length. Okay, so if verified dot user equals unverified dot user, then we'll want to delete this verified array. Another thing we'd want to do is add a verified tag to this, to the unverified entity. So I think we're going to need to pass an array of entities for both classes. I feel like there might be a better way to do this, but I'm not sure what. And then I'll have another queue of entities, and this will be the tag queue that will tag verified too. So destroy queue. Well, I was going to say what happens if we get a duplicate, but we've already made sure that there's no duplicates here in the verified list, or the unverified list of guesses. Actually, I should change this to like new and old now, but so that means that there's only unique user IDs in the unverified list, so I don't ever need to worry about trying to delete the same entity twice, which is nice to see. So I'm going to call this new guesses. And new guess entities. And then this will be old guesses. This makes more sense to me because now that the new guesses have made it through those filters, they're also verified. And then verified new guesses. Okay, so anyway, destroy queue, in queue, old guess entities, I, and then tag queue, in queue, old, or no, it would be new guess entities. Yeah, we wouldn't have to use these queues, but like I said before, you can't burst compile with entity command buffers yet, so we'll take care of that later. So now I want to have one more job that looks through the new guesses, and then if it's not in this verified new guess list, then we're gonna delete it. That's kind of... I feel like there's probably a better way to do it. Because also we'll need to create... Well, let's see. Because we also need to add to the tag queue if it doesn't find a duplicate. So basically anything that's in the new guess will always need to be tagged, so I think this tag queue might be unneeded. Okay, so let's see. Let's make another private struct, and this will be tag or destroy new guess worker. And I think this should just be a job. Well, I guess it could be a... Yeah, the thing is, I don't know if... I feel like it wouldn't be that difficult, but I don't know if this list is guaranteed to be sorted. So I think I'll need to be a job so I can sort it, and then we would just iterate through it. Verify new guesses. Yeah, and then I need the entities again. Okay, and I will need both of these queues here, unless I want to just have the entity components. I mean, unless I just want to have the command buffer. Let's do it without the command buffer, I guess, so we can burst compile. That'd probably be worth it since we're going to have to sort that list. Probably a more efficient way is if I had a separate job just to sort the list, and then that way it would run here, and then that way this job and this job could run in parallel. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do it. This will be a good example. Okay, so... Yeah, and also if I see it is guaranteed to be sorted already, I kind of doubt, but if it is, then I can just delete this worker and that's all I have to do. So this would just have this... I guess it wouldn't be read only, it'd be read and write. And I think it has a sort. Yeah, do I need to... So probably if I don't pass it anything, it will just sort the integers ascending. Okay, so this runs, and then that way this and this one can run in parallel. Am I done here, I think? Because I kind of got ahead of myself, but yeah, we just delete the queue. So basically, any verified new guess is definitely going to be promoted to be a permanent guess, and we just need to delete old guesses that have the same user. Okay, so now that this is sorted, and I0 I less than new guesses. Yeah, we don't actually need the guesses themselves, we just need the entities. So actually how I do this is I'd sort through here, and then since the indexes are sorted, the first we would just tag the index that's in this list, and then get the next one, and everything between them we would set as to destroy. So start at 0, and we'll want to go until next to last. Okay, so tag Q. Let's do it this way. First, verified. I, and then second. I plus 1, and so we'll add the first to the tag Q. And then for every index between the first and second, first is 1, and then D is less than the second verified. Then we'll want to add those to the destroy queue. And just to make sure, let's do a bit of a thought experiment to make sure this is right. So if, for example, index 1 and 2 are both verified, then that means D would start out as 2, which is equal to second. Yeah, so then nothing would be added to the destroy queue. So now all I need to do is just add the very last value in this new guess entity list to the tag queue. Verified new guesses. It's kind of this works, but it seems wrong. So last verified equals this. Just to make it a little bit more readable. Okay, so now that's done. All I need to do is read the values in here and feed them to a command buffer. So command buffer worker. And we could even, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. I was gonna say we could even be really smart and have a separate job do the destroys and a separate one do the tags, but I think since both of these need to be done because they both use the destroy, they'll end up running at the same time anyway. Doesn't make any difference. So we can read entities from the queue. I mean, we can write them in parallel, but you can't read from the queue in parallel. So this will just be just a single job. Okay, public. Also, yeah, this isn't read-only, we write to it. That would definitely give us an error there. Same with right here. Okay, and then we read and write to the entity command buffer. And then we just have these two queues, which I guess now they would be read-only, but I think in order to read from a queue, you also remove something from the queue, so technically you also write to it. Okay, so while destroy queue, oh, I left the parallel writer tag in there. We want to dequeue. I guess I'll try dequeue because that will actually be a little cleaner. For entity, then buffer dot destroy entity. Oh, I misspelled that. And then we'll do the same thing for the tag, but all I have to do is call buffer dot add component to this entity, and that would be new verified. Okay, so now we did all the code here, and logically it looks like it should work, but obviously we got to test it, and then we have to hook all this up here. So I know I'm going to need an entity query for the board, and then also an entity query for both verified and unverified entities. Query. I think I'll call new and old guess. Okay, and oh, I only have a few minutes, so unfortunately I probably won't be able to finish all this on this stream, which is a bit of a shame because now I'm going to have to wait until next week, but okay, so here we just want component type dot read only, and this will be the board. And then for new guess query, we'll want component type read only tile guess. Oh, and yeah, we need to exclude any entities that have verified, so I gotta be a little bit more specific here. So we gotta get the entity query description, and looks like my music thing just crashed, but it's starting back up. It's been doing that the last couple streams. I don't really know what's going on. And then none new component type. It's gonna be read only, I guess. I don't think it makes much difference. So we just don't want to have the verified tag. And then the old guess query. Just to make it obvious that they're different. We'll want both the tile guess and verified. Oops. I hope that didn't vibrate the microphone too much. Sorry about that. Okay, and yeah, we're gonna... Well, we don't really care if there's any old guesses, but we definitely need the board and a new guess, so I'll require those two for update. Okay, and then... Well, yeah, we need to read from that and then set all these values. Yeah, so it's going to be kind of a bit of a job to do that, so I probably should just stop it here, especially since I'm already a couple minutes over. Alright. Well, thanks everybody for coming by. I hope you have a great Friday night and weekend. Sorry to kind of leave on a cliffhanger here, but to be honest, we wouldn't really get much, or it'd be kind of difficult to test this because I only have, or we only support one user at the moment. Not implemented exception is what I'm trying to write here. But I guess we could test it, and because if I sent more than one command, it should delete the old one, so that's one thing that we need to test. And then I could send it out of bounds values. So there is stuff we can do, but that's what we'll be doing Monday. Fix this up. Let me just write a note. So I need to, I guess, hook up all job dependencies. This do not involve. Okay, so yeah, we don't do that already. Theoretically, we do this, but I'll leave it unchecked because I need to test it. Actually, I should leave both of those unchecked because we should test both. Alright. Maybe before I get sucked into something else, I hope you'll have a great weekend. Yeah, I'll see you Monday. We'll continue working on this. I'm gonna go ahead and put some links in the chat if you want to talk to me on Discord or anything over the weekend. Feel free to join me. If I'm busy, I'll try to answer you whenever I can, so don't worry if I have a do not disturb up or whatever. And also have links to my other social media. Also for people on YouTube, I put all those links down in the video description so you can check there as well if you're interested. But yeah, I think that's about it. So I'll see you on Monday. I hope you have a great weekend, and bye-bye.